Hello dear friends, it's Carly and welcome back to another of my videos. Thank you so much for joining me. I want to talk about this possibly very watery week that we may have coming up. I say watery week because our two primary transits this week are the Cancer new moon and Neptune retrograde is beginning. So Neptune will be stationing retrograde this week, and a day or two later the Cancer new moon will happen, where we have the sun and the moon both in Cancer at exactly the same point, which always signifies the new moon. So something of a soul infusion and an upgrade in our emotional understanding of how we fit in our lives. What are our lives for, and how do we take good care of ourselves so that we can be as effective in our life as we possibly can be. Cancer, where the new moon is occurring this week, is traditionally ruled by the moon. So that is the main luminary in this case that we associate with the sign of Cancer. And anytime we talk about the moon, this is essentially, how I understand it, our gas tank. So when we engage with our moon, when we take good care of our moon, whatever sign that happens to be in for each of us individually, we are essentially going to the gas station. We are putting gas in our gas tank by taking good care of our moon. So as you can imagine, that requires regular care. Putting gas in the gas tank, like, you can't go for very long before it's time to do more, time to put more gas in there. So what I'm expecting out of this Cancer new moon kind of revelation, typically new moons are like soul infusions, where we have the luminary that represents the divine masculine, the sun, coming together with the luminary that represents the divine feminine, the moon, and we have them at exactly the same point. And there's this harmony and cohesion of energy that's all pointed in the same direction for this particular new moon moment. And where it's in Cancer, I'm basically expecting that we will have revelations and friend hauling some of his bigger animals around. Got a horse in there or something. That basically we can expect revelations around kind of like a reality check almost, of like, what is the current status of your gas tank? Like, are you sitting on empty? Are you full and like ready to go? Or what I'm guessing is that pretty much all of us have room for improvement. I think that's generally always the case. And that on the new moon, chances are we're going to see some type of way that we could potentially be taking better care of ourselves. And this is getting into kind of the heart of self-care. Is generally how I think of Cancer, is like, what are your needs? Not just physical, like you're hungry, you need some food, but like emotional, your feelings are hurt, or there's fear coming up that needs to be processed, or, tears that want to come out, that want to be cried. And like, those needs have a mind of their own. And if we don't cooperate with our own needs, like, they'll have their way with us no matter what we do. So on the Cancer new moon, I'm looking forward to tuning in to my self-care, my gas tank, and seeing, like, is it totally as full as it could be, or are there ways that I could be making choices to take better care of myself in my day-to-day experience? I think it's important to keep in mind that, like, when we do talk about these transits, like, for example, both of the ones that we're talking about this week, the Cancer new moon and the Neptune retrograde that's beginning, it's like these transit energies that we're working with, they are across the board for the entire collective, like the same energy. Like, we're all going to be, stewing under this Cancer new moon, for example. And at the same time, the revelation that is coming to each of us individually is to serve our individual moon sign. So, like, for example, my moon is in Leo in my 5th house. So this Cancer new moon is going to be informing me about how my Leo moon could be taken even better care of than what I'm already giving it. It's like, how would I step it to the next level specifically for a Leo moon, a 5th house moon? So that the downloads, the revelations, the right path forward, the right next step, like, that's where each of us individually are going to download that information for ourselves through our own internal process of self-revelation, because each of us have our own moon sign, right? Like, your version of self-care could be completely different from mine, especially if, like, for example, you're an Aquarius moon, I'm a Leo moon. Like, our self-care is exactly opposite. And that's okay. It's about finding your own path to answering your own internal needs. So that's kind of 2 cents about the Cancer new moon in general. I do have an episode of Astrology and Coffee where I talked for a whole in-depth deep dive on the Cancer new moon and the sun in Cancer. So if you do want more, definitely check that out. I also just covered this past Friday at Astrology and Coffee. The deep dive was on Neptune retrograde in Pisces. So another deep dive, if you want more, you're more than welcome to check that out. And with the Neptune retrograde, I want to specifically talk for just a second about if you have Neptune retrograde in your natal chart already. I've mentioned this before, like when I was talking about Saturn, how I have Saturn retrograde in my natal chart, and as I tracked back through that recent Saturn return video I made through the timeline of like the 5 years around my Saturn return, I noticed that when Saturn goes retrograde, it's like the universe rains blessings on me. And maybe that's the case for everybody. Maybe it's the case for those of us that have Saturn retrograde in our natal chart already, that retrograde time is just a time of blessings, and almost like the stars are more in alignment with how you're naturally wired. When you're carrying a retrograde planet and then that planet goes retrograde, it's like everything's lined up with what you're most comfortable with, what's most natural for you, the lessons and path that you're on in this lifetime. It's like the external world comes into alignment with that for a little bit. So I'm super excited. I also have Neptune retrograde in my chart. So I'm very much looking forward to tracking through this, few months. Neptune retrograde starts, gosh, it's in the description box, and then goes through December 3rd. So this is part of, I mentioned on Friday, like my episode that I did here a few weeks ago, my thoughts on retrogrades, because at this point we now have 3 planets. When Neptune goes retrograde this week, we'll have 3 planets that are retrograde: Neptune, Pluto, and Saturn. And by October 1st, we will have 7 planets retrograde. So this Neptune stationing retrograde is just like kind of another one in the line of dominoes of like all the retrogrades that we'll have in play on October 1st, when the first one will station direct, and then October, November, December, 6 out of the 7 end up stationing direct at the end of this year. So we have something of a period of reflection, reflection from multiple different angles. This Neptune retrograde that's starting this week is only one more piece of the puzzle. And when you think about it in kind of like a really broad archetype, Pluto is something of a healing journey. It's where we are healing our wounds by coming face to face with them. It's where we're exercising and working out our separating desires, all the reasons that we want to be physical in this life. We, one by one, will get the things that we desire, and by getting it, we'll realize, like, okay, well, I guess like what I really want is to be connected to, happiness and source energy, or God, or however you want to put it. It's that Pluto is that dueling desire of, I want to separate and I want to become my own individual self. And once I become my individual self, I just want connection. And once I'm knee deep in connection, all I want is to be separate. So Pluto is that dynamic back and forth of like basically spiraling eternal growth and expansion into the future forever. So Pluto going retrograde, I think, is a lot about reevaluating the separating desires that we're currently burning through, that basically the things that we're currently working on obtaining, or the things that feel like they haven't fully come into focus yet. And reevaluating, like, one, is that even what you still want? Why do you want that? Is it because it's for your own highest good, it's for your own soul's evolution, or are you trying to live up to somebody else's recipe for success? And that's kind of going to be the case for all of these retrograde planets that are making their stations. Saturn is another one. Like, you know, basically the question is, are you following somebody else's recipe for quote unquote success, or are you doing what feels right to you on the inside? Are you living up to your own sense of integrity and morality and doing what's right, even though nobody may be watching? Or are you trying to like measure up and climb a ladder in the outside world? And then we have Neptune, and Neptune is most closely related to like our spiritual path in terms of that Pluto, like the dueling desires. The Mars represents the desire to separate and have an ego and a sense of I and an individual self. And Neptune represents our desire to merge back together with Source, and this deep feeling of, even when we venture out into like defining ourselves and doing our Mars thing and like planting our flag in the ground and declaring this is who I am, deep down there is always this sense that I am at my core a part of something much bigger than me. I am just here for a temporary time before I go back and reemerge into this bigger collective soul, this bigger oneness that I really truly am a part of. And the sign that your Neptune is in, so kind of coming back to this idea of this Neptune retrograde through Pisces, is the same for everybody. We'll all have our faith tested, our illusions will, you know, anything that we have put on a pedestal, Neptune retrograde is good at like coming along and just knocking the pedestal right out from under whatever it is that you've got up there, to where we can get real and we can see what is the actual earth energy viability of the choices that I'm making. And if I'm making choices that aren't getting me where I want to go, how can I make different choices to better get where I want to go? So Neptune retrograde is extremely productive in terms of the opportunities for disillusionment. And when you go back to your own personal sign of your Neptune in your natal chart, that's where we can look at what particular flavor of disillusionment are you here for in this particular lifetime. So like, for example, my Neptune is in Capricorn, and it plays really well with my Capricorn midheaven and my Virgo south node. So I have, and my Taurus rising and my Taurus Jupiter. So I have a lot of earth energy in my chart and a lot of stamina. Taurus, I mean, I can, once I get going, I can go and go and go as long as I need to get to the top of the mountain. And that ability is extremely valuable. Like, basically, I call myself like a professional goal setter. Like, I can, you know, just as long as you can envision it, you can get yourself there. That's earth energy. It's just like how to put one foot in front of the other and get yourself there. But the part that I'm being disillusioned to with my Neptune in Capricorn is that just because you can get to the top of a mountain doesn't mean that you're gonna like it when you get up there. So many times I meet my goal, I get where I was going, I get the promotion, I get the certificate, I get the master's degree, I get the house, I get the fiance, I get the thing, the physical thing that I'm shooting for in physical reality that I want to physically possess. I get it. I'm really good at getting the thing. And then it is typically entirely empty. It is like, okay, cool, you met your goal, and do you feel different now? Like when I passed my PMP certification, like when I clicked submit and I saw like, congratulations, you passed, you got a 92%. Like, you're now a project management professional, certificate number, there you go. Like, here you are. And I'm sitting there thinking like, I feel the same. I don't feel more professional. I don't feel like my status has been elevated. I don't feel more confident in myself. I feel the same. This physical piece that I've like now secured for myself, done the goal setting thing where I got the thing. It's like, okay, I thought if I got the thing, it would also come with an upgrade in confidence and like prestige within my career and a sense of like really taking a big step forward in my career. And there was none of that. And so it was definitely that moment of disillusionment of like, why did you think in the first place that some piece of paper was going to change how you felt on the inside? Like that was the gap between, you know, when we talk about these moments of disillusionment, it's not about the disappointment of, oh, I didn't get what I want. It's like, you got exactly what you wanted. You got exactly what the outcome was from the choices you made. You know, I set my sights on this certificate because I thought that was the answer to me feeling insecure in the workplace. I thought that it was because I didn't have enough credibility, and the way to get credibility was to get more letters behind your name and then you would feel more credible. Nope. Yeah. And I think that's my particular version of disillusionment, is like Capricorn, like the sea goat. Like you can traverse any terrain and I can meet any goal, great. But when you get to the end of it and it was completely hollow, you know, you were doing it for all the wrong reasons. You're trying to get a PMP, not to learn project management, not to, you know, get better at the craft of project management. I'm sure I wanted that to some extent, but clearly my number one priority was to get the confidence and the prestige that would come from meeting that goal, and that wasn't included. Had my goal been, I want to learn project management, I want to be the best possible project manager, I want my projects to go as smoothly and as on time and without as many mistakes and miscommunications, like I want to be the best project manager I can be. If that had been my goal, I would imagine that building up my knowledge and my skill set and then taking this exam that proved that I had actually built the knowledge and the skill set would have been extremely satisfying. But that wasn't my goal. I was looking for a confidence boost, and I was hunting for it in all the wrong places. And so that's Neptune and Capricorn, I think, is that we can, to some extent, achieve material world success, and within achieving that you realize just how hollow it really is. Like, sure, you can be a workaholic, you can work 80 hours a week, you can even turn yourself into a billionaire, but are you happy? Do you like it? Are you having fun? Do you feel connected to source energy? Do you feel deeply fulfilled on a soul level? I didn't. You know, I couldn't find that in the physical world. And so that's the territory. That's your spiritual path. That's like, where is your spiritual path going to take you? And if you have a Neptune and Capricorn, like my generation does, it's going to take you into places where you're going to meet your goals and they're not going to be anything like what you thought. You know, you're going to graduate from college and hate your job. Like, the whole point of going to college was to get a better job. And then you get into the workforce and you're like, what the hell? I did not spend the last 4 or 5 years of my life like paying all this money for a degree just to work a job like this. No, that's not going to happen. So there can be a lot of different ways that Capricorn accomplishing things can be incredibly disillusioning, because on the outside or on the surface it looks like you have everything, like you've got it all, and on the inside it doesn't feel that way. And you know, every single Neptune generation is going to have a slightly different flavor on their particular Neptune placement and how their unique disillusionment is likely to manifest. And actually Neptune, just to kind of throw this out there, I don't know exactly when I'm going to work on this, but Neptune and Pluto are my two next planets that I want to focus on to make some deep dive videos into each of the different generations. So if you have Neptune in Sagittarius, for example, or Libra, the reason I want to do Neptune and Pluto, complete transparency, is because of all the people alive today, there's probably only a handful of Neptune and Pluto placements. So it wouldn't be like you'd have to do all 12 in the series, and I probably wouldn't. So I would do the applicable ones and move on with my life. So This last little bit that I want to leave you with, as far as your energy like boost for this Monday morning or whenever you take in this video. So on Friday at the Astrology and Coffee live stream, I shared the tarot cards that I had drawn for the newsletter that was going to go out this morning, Monday, if that's when you're watching. And I drew a card for Neptune Retrograde, and then Cancer, New Moon, and then kind of a timeless, like what's a message that would serve our highest good whenever anybody came across it. And so I shared those 3 cards in the Friday live stream. And then this morning I was like, am I gonna pull back those 3 cards and share those? Or I was like, I don't think so. Like, I feel like there's like another level of the message that's wanting to come through beyond those 3 cards I shared about the same energy on Friday. And so I shuffle and shuffle and shuffle, you know, just for the fun of it. I shuffled like 50 times and like just sitting there thinking like this Neptune retrograde opportunity to see clearly in our lives how we can make choices that will support our highest good and the highest good of the all. This Cancer new moon, again, where we're going to have a reality check and have it lit up where we can possibly take even better care of ourselves. And just shuffling, and finally like, okay, that feels good. And so I'm going to flip over these 3 cards, and you can't make this up. You just can't make it up. So the first card changed. The second 2 are the same. So if you remember the 2 of Wands, the 3 of Wands, I talked in depth about these 2 cards. The one, and I'll get back to those in a second, the one that changed, and this is the evolution of the message that wanted to come through. So on Friday and in the newsletter, the first card was the Eight of Pentacles, which is about mastering a skill, honing your craft, like really focusing not on the outcome and the results that you're getting from your craft, but focusing on the love and the soul and the energy that you're pouring into it. Like, how much are you enjoying it? How much are you enjoying flowing the energy? Not necessarily like, are you getting the results that you want to get? Because on that Eight of Pentacles card, it's like, it takes a really long time to master a skill. It's like 10,000 hours to master something. So in order to put that much time into something, of course you love it. Of course you're choosing to do it because it's fun. That's the only way that we spend enough time to get really good at something. And so the card that it got replaced with in today's reading is this one, the 4 Major Arcana 4, the Emperor. And these are the Light Seers cards, by the way, the Light Seers deck by Chris Ann, my fave. I love that the Emperor replaced the Eight of Pentacles, because I feel like what this is getting at is like, you are so much farther ahead than you think you are. Like, what if any feelings of I'm not ready are just the very normal and logical sense of I've never done this before, and this is new territory, and there are likely to be scenarios where I don't know how to handle it at first, and I'll have to think on my feet. I'll quite literally have to like figure out if I can adapt and surf the wave and stay on top of it. But like I got into on Friday with this card, is like, it's not about being perfect. It's like, you know, imagine she's standing on this beach with her surfboard and she's never not one time surfed a wave. Like, how do you know if you can surf the wave? You have to prove it to yourself by trying before you're able. So that's where this card comes in, of like, really all we need to move forward and all we need to prove to ourselves what we're truly capable of is a willingness to try, a willingness to be ready enough to handle being a beginner, you know, like to just own it. You know, that's obviously my page is called Owning Authenticity. I think our best bet is just to own the fact that this is the first time I've ever done this and make that the story. You know, like if you go back and listen to the first episode of my podcast, my I Learned podcast called Go For It, that's essentially what I was doing. Like, the first episode was me talking about how freaking uncomfortable it is to do something you've never done before. And it was so wild because it showed me, like, you know, the taking off part of like pressing record and trying to start talking is really hard. Like, trying to launch the plane into the air is really hard. Flying the plane was easier than I thought it would be. Whoa, like once I got going, it was like so easy to just keep it going. And then landing the plane, like ending the episode, a little bit harder than I thought it was going to be. And it was super awkward. And it was like, you know, like coming in hot and like bouncing like it was awkward and it was uncomfortable and it wasn't a smooth ride for me or for the listener, probably. But you know what? Like, I did it, and I didn't let the fact that I've never done a podcast episode stop me from trying to do a podcast episode. And now I feel like, I mean, doing that podcast got me ready enough to try YouTube videos, to try talking while I'm also on video, while I'm trying to look at myself and keep my train of thought going. So the willingness to be ready enough to laugh at yourself if you fall off your surfboard. You know, like in those first 10, 15, 20 episodes, I lost my train of thought more times than I can count. And every time I just laughed at it and was like, well, obviously that wasn't meant to be. You know, I fell off the surfboard. I was trying and I wasn't perfect at it. But as I did it over and over and over again, I did get the hang of it. And eventually you do prove to yourself that, like this card is showing us, like you are capable of so much more than you give yourself credit for. Like, in order for you to, oh, I have to read you this line out of that card. I think I'm just going to read you the whole thing. I'll try to make it interesting. There we go. The Emperor's message is one of ambitions met and success found. Often seen as the card of the divine masculine, the Emperor brings forth a desire to build a better world one brick at a time. Use your mind as well as your heart and rise to power as you lead your own evolution. While becoming your own emperor means infinite possibility for your success. Windy. It also means addressing any issues you harbor around authority, control, and willpower. You may need to work your magic within the confines of establishment, but remember that the organizing principles of societies are fluid over time. Remain flexible and keenly aware of your own energetic boundaries and motives. Find opportunities to be of service to others as you build your empire. Step into this fiery energy of success and rise, sweet light seer. Embody confident, compassionate leadership and exercise sovereignty over your own reality. The world is yours. I lead the circumstances in my world with confidence, harmony, and generosity. Be your own emperor. Lead your own evolution. And last but not least, this card I also shared on Friday that I drew this over and over and over again last summer and was like, okay, I get it. And the universe was like, obviously you don't. And so we're going to give you the card 20 more times. So the fact that I drew the Two of Wands and the Three of Wands out of all the cards, like for the exact same message, again, you just can't make this stuff up. So this card represents a person who is comfortable, has manifested lots of cool things into their life. And so they're inside like a comfy, beautiful space. And within that comfort, there can sometimes be a bit of a trap of like, I should be more grateful for what I have instead of like wanting more and feeling guilty that like I have it so good and yet I want more. I want more than this. This isn't enough. And it really does bring us into a conversation around deservability, like so many of my messages do. But it's like, do you deserve comfort? Or do you deserve everything within your wildest dreams? because that's what she's got down here, is like a map and a bus and a globe, and she's looking out the window at the horizon like, there's more. I can feel it. I know there's more. And are you going to let yourself have it? Are you going to stay inside your comfy space and be comfortable? Because you can. You totally can. Like, that's totally, each and every one of us get to choose. But at the time that I kept drawing this card over and over and over again, I was like, I'm willing. I'm willing to be uncomfortable. I'm willing to step outside my comfort zone and be uncomfortable if it means getting closer to like what's going on down here with the vision for what I'm dreaming about. And it really was exceptionally pointed for me, especially because what I was dreaming about was buying a school bus and renovating it into a home that I could live in with Dolly and the dogs, and that we could go out on the road anywhere you can drive to. That's where we would live, was inside this bus. And so every time I would draw this card, it's like, do you want to live the life of your dreams, or do you want to keep being comfortable? I mean, again, there's no shame either way. You can have whatever you want. You can have whatever you want, but you will get exactly what you settle for. And that's the part that I think Neptune retrograde especially can really help us out with. I think Saturn, Pluto, Neptune, all of them are helping to contribute to us being disillusioned around the choices that we are making, the outcomes that those choices lead to, and how we might be able to make better choices to better support ourselves in our day-to-day. Thank you so much for joining me for this Monday installment of Astrology Energy. I hope you found it helpful, dear friends. For those of you that are catching me on Monday, tomorrow on June 28th, Tuesday at 10 a.m. Central Time will be our Sacred Circle over in the Patreon community. This is a live Zoom event that is very interactive, very open as far as if you want to participate and tell a story or ask a question, you sure can. If you want to listen the whole time, you sure can. But if you're feeling in your life at all like you wish you had more soul friends that you could talk about your spiritual path, your healing journey with, this is a space exactly for those things. So if you want to join us, please go check that out. The link is in the description. Also coming up, I've mentioned several times lately, I have my group coaching program that is starting July 17th. The enrollment for that is open. The link for that is also in the description. Just a couple days ago, I was working on a new document, I want to say worksheet, it's more like a play sheet that we're going to use in the 3 sessions called Unpacking Ourselves, and basically filling out the different columns as we go through those 3 Sundays of material of looking at all of our different charts. My goal with this play sheet is to show how do you follow the thread through like your initial natal chart, your own personal unique astrology, and then convert that into the human design, follow the thread to the human design chart, and then follow the thread to your gene keys chart. It's our same friend. He must have dropped off his little animal, his little horse friend. But yeah, how do you follow the thread through all of the charts? Not necessarily trying to teach everything there is to know about your chart. I mean, that can take hours and years and decades of our life, but I sure can lay out a framework and help connect the dots through all of these different pieces to show how, like, basically all of these tools for self-awareness, like, they're all essentially telling the same story. Like, when you follow the thread through, you see like all the different charts, all the different tools that are out there are essentially just putting the same story in different language, so maybe you can hear it a little bit more clearly. So like, I just am so excited that this is starting July 17th, going through the end of the year. We'll meet every other Sunday for 2 hours each time, and each session will be interactive. It'll be a lot of teaching and me sharing things that are in my toolbox, but also a lot of interaction, so that as much as we possibly can within the group, personalizing each module, each set of tools, so that you're connecting the dots as best you can, so that you can absolutely work with that tool later on. But I'm so excited that this program is essentially going to cover this massive retrograde season that we have and all of the planets turning direct. So I think it's going to be so fun to witness how the members of this group, again, if you're looking for community, this is another great space that's intended for that purpose specifically. But it's going to be so fun to watch us all go through the retrograde together, of going through the disillusionment, owning the ways that we could absolutely better support ourselves in chasing our dreams and living the lives we were born to live. And then as all the planets station direct, watching the implementations of the lessons and the wisdom and the clarity that came from the retrograde, watching our group implement these things together and trying new things together, and then coming back next Sunday and telling the story about how I went out and I surfed my first wave. I only stood up for half a second and then I fell off and, ate shit, but I did it and I tried, and I'm going to try it this way next time. And like, let people hold you in that, let people rally around and be excited for your journey, be excited for any new territory that you are venturing into. I want to be there to help celebrate it. That is essentially what this group is for. And I love how it's lining up with the astrology to hopefully support us all as we are realizing areas where we need to pull back from investing our energy in certain places, and places where we absolutely want to more deliberately invest our energy over here, because we can now see more clearly that that's really what we want to be doing. Thank you again for joining me for this episode. Until next time, dear friends, you take such good care of yourselves. If I can support you at all, please don't hesitate to let me know, and I will see you soon.